So just a little bit about teaching building decarbonization. A couple surprising findings as far as the BDLA is concerned, and our interaction with different professors is we didn't expect this, but many professors asked for help explaining why decarbonization mattered and what were the threats to climate change and such. We had been thinking that that question would not have been the important question. It would be more like, how do we decarbonize buildings? So we have responded to that request by creating two or three different slide presentations and then links to videos and other reading material and reference material on this sort of higher level question. So I think a lot of students and young people, they do know that climate change is a problem, but they don't quite get how decarbonization, or more specifically, building decarbonization fits in. So I think that's a really interesting finding. Another thing, of the many things that we have available for downloading, the three most popular are introduction to building decarbonization, and then this growing shift towards building decarbonization. So again, higher level stuff. And then key elements of energy efficiency, which I'm very glad that that third one is coming in, because as we heard from Amory and Kara, the ability to save energy in buildings can be super significant in this path to decarbonization. So we're really happy to see energy efficiency getting sort of a top rating there. So, as far as some of the feedback that we've gotten from professors on different methodology teaching decarbonization, I think if you're a professor, you'll have your way of doing things. And everybody's got a style that that they are comfortable with and that works for their students. But within that style, there's, certain tools and teaching methods that can make sense. I think that a lot of folks are doing a design-based collaboration with the students to get them engaged in thinking about these concepts and applying them. So different forms of, design a house, design a commercial building that's decarbonized, and having the students, dive into it from that perspective. Some of the courses that are doing this try to break the quarter or the semester into different components and have a series of assignments relate to that. So what we're seeing is maybe architecture and lighting and building systems be part of the discussion, and that's where you can get into energy efficiency as well as electrification. But I think another thing that's part of decarbonized buildings is this idea of the embodied carbon, and having students delve into that, which is a growing area, and renewables, understanding renewables, and also energy storage, which is a growing strategy within buildings. And then we're seeing a lot of professors ask us about what about the just decarbonization, and how do we weave that into our class? So I think that a lot of folks are adding that in as well. One of the strategies that we've seen work is creating energy budgets for buildings, having students start thinking about how much energy can be generated on the roof of the building. Not that that's the only way, as we've heard. Off-site renewables are a big part of the strategy, but having students think about creating a budget that is a low energy budget. Another way of doing that is looking at building performance data and seeing what buildings use typically and what they can use as low energy buildings. We have seen folks use the Energy Star buildings and the Target Finder tool within the Energy Star buildings program to create budgets for low energy buildings. There's a tool that was developed by EHDD architects that is a simplified carbon calculator, and it does simplified embodied carbon calculations that are good for students because it's high level. It also does operational carbon emissions. So students can input a set of simple parameters that will give them a sense of what's the embodied carbon of a building look like? What does the operational carbon look like? And so we've seen that tool be used effectively. It's probably not, the be all and end all for a very detailed dive into embodied carbon or other carbon calculations. But for a high level look at these numbers, it's just, fantastic. It's great for students. Excuse me. So another area is looking at retrofits and having a project-based retrofit. The folks at Howard University have been using the AIA building, which is undergoing a retrofit. We actually have a case study on that. So Howard will use that building as a project and ask the students to come up with their own version of how would they decarbonize the building. Another thing that is a common teaching technique, not necessarily specific to building decarbonization, but is this idea of a flipped classroom. And I think a lot of the decarbonization topics are ones that need to be discussed and worked on in the classroom with the students so they have a chance to interact and absorb the information in a deeper way that oftentimes is able to be, works better with the flipped classroom concept, where outside of class, the students are, reading material or watching videos, but in class they're really applying them and working on it. And then last but not least, is that our next speaker will be talking about this idea of gamification and how do we bring that into the classroom. So I'm going to end there. Oh, there's one other one that I wanted to highlight. The folks at NC-A&T, North Carolina A&T University, have been using this, which is they have an architectural engineering program. It's very highly regarded. And they're teaching our engineering students, architectural engineering students, about how buildings work. And it builds up to the junior year where they learn about building systems. And in the junior year, they do weave in decarbonization concepts, right? So they're starting to learn about energy efficiency in building systems, building envelope. They learn about electrification and renewable energy. And then the senior year, their capstone project year, building decarbonization is one of the criteria that they have to design to. And they design a building, and this has been their method of teaching for many years. But now they've added in one of the criteria for the senior year project is that the building be decarbonized. I find that really exciting, and it's been just a small change to the program that they already had going, but it's bringing this in so that when students graduate, they're comfortable with the idea of decarbonization.